Well, of course, the big news from the first week of February was Meta's stock basically plummeting off of bad earnings reports. There is a lot of signs in the VR realm of things to have a lot of hope for the future. We're going to talk about that and a few other bits of news that came out in the first week of February around VR. Let's go. A bit of bad news with a positive twist on the end of it is, of course, Firefox relinquishing control of their browser, which did have VR and AR capabilities. Now, in 2020, we know that a lot of people suffered, but Firefox definitely was in that category, as they did have to lay off people at that time, which means that they also were suffering and laying off people that were working on the browser. In comes the positive news, Wolvik is a team that is now taken over. The cool thing with the browser is that it's pretty similar to the Oculus browser to be able to support the web XR content, so you can have a more immersive time within there with the different web experiences. Whether that comes from watching 360 videos the same way that you would in the regular one, there are a lot of other neat features that might be able to push this past this. I don't really know how far this is going to go beyond the Oculus browser because it has really evolved. I'm a big fan of the Oculus browser, but it is nice to see that this is getting a little bit of love to be able to support potentially long term. One of the big headlines from last week across the world was, of course, Meta's big plunge when it came to their earnings in Q4. Now, this was bad news, having really catastrophic results on their stock, but there was a bit of news that we didn't quite previously have around the Quest and some of the earnings there. Financials that showed up were talking about the increase in earnings, most notably in Q4 from Reality Labs. Now, the totals there were around 2.3 billion, which is around the same amount that they purchased Oculus for back all the way in 2014. Now, it should come as no surprise that they were going to be posting losses. This has been open for quite some time, that they were going to have about $10 billion annually in losses. This is a pretty big investment. When you consider how low the price is on the Quest, you knew that that was going to cause them a pretty big hit. Not only that, but they are investing towards the future, the metaverse, and everything around it, and it's really no surprise. What I guess is the big question is how much of this investment will get a return in the future, because these are some pretty substantial losses. This has caused some questions and concerns, especially as competition nears from people like Apple and other ones, and the competition and the drive towards the metaverse will be very telling over the next few years, and whether these losses will be worth it for Meta and whether the VR environment is going to be adaptive and enough to dominate the market by taking these losses to keep other people out. Now, the other big note about this is that it was also stated that over $1 billion has now been spent on the Oculus Store content, which is really healthy for those that are looking to come into the VR space, knowing that that means here's your green light, go ahead, start developing. When more people start developing and there's more money within the market, and that means that now we're going to have more competition for people to come in and be able to develop games, knowing that the market is now there. More competition means that more companies can come in, make better games, and that means that the consumer gets the win. It might raise some prices down the road, but overall that does mean that we should be getting better experiences over the next few years as people now realize that there is money within the VR market. The theme of this week is, of course, all the news around Meta, because there has been some pretty rough news with some good news mixed in, and a bit of confusing news to kind of top this one off. Mark Zuckerberg told investors that Meta plans to launch a version of Horizon on mobile. Stated, "Horizon is core to our metaverse vision. This is our social VR world-building experience that we recently opened to people in the US and Canada. And we've seen a number of talented creators build worlds like a recording studio where producers collaborate, or a relaxing space to meditate. And this year, we plan to launch a version of Horizon on mobile too that will bring early metaverse experiences to more surfaces beyond VR. So while the deepest and most immersive experiences are going to be in virtual reality, you're also going to be able to access the worlds from your Facebook or Instagram apps as well, and probably more over time." What does this mean? On the app, we know that AR capabilities are right on the horizon. They've been around for quite some time, especially if you're an iPhone user. We know that iPhone is investing and has done a lot of really cool stuff around AR. We know that companies are experiencing with AR shopping. So there's so many different things that are going to be open to that. So how does that tie into the metaverse, as they say? This is probably one of the more confusing announcements because we don't have any real details on what that means, or any trailer or video showcasing what these things are. How soon into the future this is, we don't really know yet, But having an app allowing you to maybe go into these experiences, maybe allowing you to put stuff in those moments, nobody really knows yet the full extent of what these apps will be able to do. The big question is, does that limit developers on wondering if this works here, does it also work on mobile? That can be a little bit troubling for developers, but overall, this does have some promise, even though it does sound a little bit murky at this point. But it is something to keep our eye on as time goes on.